Well, think about how fast the president has moved in 100 days. And when you
That's the part the media leaves out. That's why she tried to cover it up. Tariffs don't hurt small businesses when you create policy smart. And Trump knows how to make deals, not excuses. Let me get this straight. Trump brings down inflation, creates more jobs, and brings back the American industry, and somehow he's a problem? CNN may have actually aired a Trump commercial. Let's break it down.
As we reported last week, the national wholesale price for a dozen of large white eggs has gone down. Last Friday, it was about $3.13, according to the Department of Agriculture, which is down from the $6.55 the week that President Trump took office. That's a decline of about 52%, not 87% or even 93 or 94, as we've heard from him. On day 100 of the president's second term and into his second presidency, he is declaring a success and also touting the tariffs that he's put in place, even as they've roiled the financial markets and created deep concern for many voters. My lead source tonight is the Republican Senator Mullen of Oklahoma, and it's great to have you here. Obviously, you're a huge ally of the president's. And now that he's 100 days in, and the economy seems to be a major focus for a lot of voters as they're looking at this. In that interview tonight, he talked about the 145% tariffs in place on China. He said he thinks China will actually end up eating most of that. Is that how you see it, though?
Well, I do. I think China has to have us. If you start looking at the economy is strong. Kaitlan, I know the voters are looking at it. You got to remember, underneath President Biden's 4 years in office, he averaged inflation at 4.95%, nearly 5%, at a high of 9.1%. Today, inflation is down to 2.4%. You start talking about optimism inside the economy. We have 229,000 jobs created. 459,000 jobs went from part-time to full-time. We have private investment of $2 trillion that have been pledged to invest in the United States in the first 100 days of the presidency. We have foreign investments of $3 trillion. That's $5 trillion invested in our economy just in the first 100 days.
Investors are watching and they're putting money where their faith is. You can't fake and bias spin that any way you want, Kaitlan. Let's keep going.
People like to see what is going on right now. You have gas prices down 22%. And when you start talking to American people, they are excited about where our country is headed.
But if the numbers are as good as the president says they are, I mean, he's wildly exaggerating how much eggs are down. They're not down 87%. If they were, people would be paying 50 cents for a dozen of eggs, which obviously you know that they're not.
The fact is they're down. And as I said, at the height.
Right, but why not just say exactly how much they're down?
Well, at the height, it was 9.1%. So it depends on what metric you're using. At 9.1%, they're down to 2.4% now. Inflation, that is a significant drop. That's not 50%. You're getting down to actual real numbers at that point. So it depends on which point you're talking about. We can discuss wherever we want to on the eggs of what source you want to say or at what time frame he may be referring to. The fact is, prices are down, and we see them continuously dropping.
But they're not down as much as he's saying that they're down for eggs. So I'm saying if my
argument, let's use the math. What's 9.1% down to 2.4%? What's the percentage?
I'm saying if the numbers are as good as you think they are, and as you're arguing, and that's number from the Agriculture Department, why not just say they're down 52% or 53% instead of 87%?
It's interesting to me that we're focused on the price of eggs when we know it's down. What I don't remember hearing is when Biden was in office and inflation was not 9.1%, about you talking about how high the prices were, or anybody, for that matter, actually saying, okay, why is inflation at 9.1%? Why are we averaging 4.95, nearly 5% of inflation? Why is it in the first 100 days? That should be the conversation. Why is it in the first 100 days that the president was able to bring down inflation to 2.4% and have $5 trillion of investment inside the United States? Why wasn't that happening in the last 4 years of the Biden administration?
I think if you asked anyone in the Biden White House, they got asked about inflation all day long. It was essentially one of the only questions reporters asked them. So I don't think that that's a fair criticism. But on the numbers, when you're looking at that, you know, this isn't some criticism from the media. It's the polling that voters are not happy with where the economy's going. They don't feel good about the president's policies, and they think they're making the economy worse. Why do you think that is?
Well, I would go, what demographic are they polling? Who are they talking to? Because when I'm talking to people in Oklahoma, or I'm talking to people in Texas, or I'm talking to people in Alabama, or wherever I'm traveling to, which granted I'm traveling to red states, they're very optimistic about where we're headed to. They're excited about what's happening inside the country. And I think investors are that way too. As I go back to it, in the first 100 days, we've had $5 trillion pledged to invest inside the United States. Why weren't they doing that underneath the Biden administration?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the CNN polling. It was, I think, the sample that they surveyed was more Republicans than it was Democrats, and then a lot of independents in there as well. I mean, it was a pretty broad swath. And it's also not just the CNN poll. It's the ABC Washington Post poll. There's a Fox News poll that's out where his numbers are down. And so I guess the question is, when you look at that, is there any sense when you look at those numbers that the White House needs to change course?
Caitlin, numbers don't lie. Polling, you can skew however you want to. When I restate these numbers again, inflation is down to 2.4%. We're an average of 4.95%, 5% underneath the Biden administration.
Yeah, inflation is down.
9.1%. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but when you have $5 trillion pledged of investment in the first 100 days, I believe the investors, I believe the job creators, those that create the jobs, that hire the individuals, I think it speaks for themselves. When you have 459,000 jobs that were part-time just 100 days ago, today they're full-time, I believe the economy is moving in the right direction. And so we should be talking about what has happened in the first 100 days. Why is it that the President Trump was able to do this and Biden couldn't?
The S&P 500 posted its biggest loss in the first 100 days of a presidency since Nixon in 1973. I mean, those are hard numbers.
Well, think about this. Well, but think about the stock market. The stock market deals on today's news, not on the future. What the president is trying to do with the tariffs is he's trying to build a workforce for the future. We know without question that countries were taking advantage of the United States' generosity for years. But countries all across Europe, all across Asia have became wealthy on taking products that were once built inside the United States, build it in their country, and then selling it back to us and taking the dollars out. When the president said enough's enough, we're tired of countries taking advantage of us, we're going to right this ship and we're going to build a workforce for the future. The stock market didn't react the way that, actually reacted the way we expected it to, really, because they deal on today's futures, not tomorrow's futures. And that's understandable. But the market that the president is building is going to be better for the future.
So people like Kaitlan Collins, man, they throw the word tariff around to scare you. Trump is just leveling the playing field because China's been eating our lunch for decades. And now we're handing them the check. Like, here, pay for this. It's time to start paying up. You don't just eat for free in a restaurant and just keep getting away with it. That's what Trump is doing. He's leveling the playing field. Let's keep going, guys, because he completely ends her.
I mean, the future generation.
Yeah, and the president is making the argument tonight that he ran on tariffs. This is what he's now putting in place. Maybe Wall Street didn't believe him. But on this today, amid this report that Amazon was going to start showing how prices were impacted by his tariffs, you would see what you would pay without the tariffs and you'd see what you pay with them. Amazon quickly denied that they're actually going to do that. But the White House lashed out and called it a hostile and political act. Why would a company being transparent about why prices are going up be hostile?
I actually had a meeting with the CEO of distribution and small stores and retails for Amazon before we came on air tonight. And he said that was based on a story that was based on a very small aspect of Amazon. But Amazon was never doing that. And so we got into pricing, started talking about pricing, right? You started talking about how that would work. He says, we haven't increased pricing. We haven't increased pricing. We don't expect to increase pricing. We haven't seen the tariffs increase. Most retailers, major retailers, had surged up before the tariffs came in because we knew what the president had said. And so we saw a larger surge in surplus in warehouse goods than we did even over Christmas. And so the consumer is not seeing this tariff that everybody is talking about.
Don't you think?
Well, according to him, it'll be weeks, possibly months before you see it happen.
But that's not that long from now, just a few weeks from now. I mean,
well, think about how fast the president has moved in 100 days. And when you
that's the part the media leaves out. That's why she tried to cover it up. Tariffs don't hurt small businesses when you create policy smart. And Trump knows how to make deals, not excuses. Let's keep going.
Say just a few weeks. I didn't say a few weeks. I said weeks, possibly months. When you start talking about what the president has accomplished in the first 100 days, can you imagine what he can do in the next 100 days? We're talking about 90 days if you want to start about months. We're talking about 90 days from now, 3 months from now. What else can happen? I have enjoyed where the direction the president is taking.
On the premise of, I mean, okay, so in 6 weeks we could see prices go up. I
don't think it'll be 6 weeks. It'll be past that.
So when should voters, do you think, be prepared for?
I don't think you got to be prepared for it. I think you're going to see a deal made. Countries need to do business with our economy. They want to do business with our economy. Think about what's the products made in China. Who needs economies worse? China, 40% of all their manufacturing goods that they make today are sold inside the United States.
But you yourself acknowledged the last time you were here, a tariff is a tax that is passed on to consumers. You've said that pretty bluntly. The question, I think, that was raised today is, why is it the responsibility of a CEO or someone who owns a company to shield the White House from the cost of their policies by not raising prices?
What do you mean shield? That's what a business owner does. We prepare for the markets ahead.
But all businesses are not going to eat these prices. You don't think that, right?
I never said they were going to eat the prices. I think some of them will be able to absorb some of them, but the retailer can't. The manufacturer can. So the margins at a retail store is much, much smaller than the margins at a manufacturing plant. So a lot of them can be absorbed from the manufacturer, and I believe they will absorb some of them. But you don't expect a retailer, when they're working off 2, 3, or at the top 6% margins, to be able to absorb that. It should be consumed at the manufacturing level, though, which is why we're trying to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States.
Which
and that's
is
what President Trump is doing.
A years-long endeavor and something that is not done in a few weeks or
But
months.
trade deals can be done, and the president is absolutely the best president we've ever had to right this ship on unfair trade practices that the countries have taken advantage of. And the president, no one can work a deal better than President Trump.
We're staying on top of it closely. None have been announced so far. Senator Mullen, thank you for coming on tonight.
Absolutely.
So Kaitlan Collins wanted to make Trump look like a liar, but instead they reminded us how bad things actually got under Biden and how fast they're turning around. You don't have to like Trump, but you have to respect the results. Let me know what you guys think about this quick video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you're new, and as always, let me know what you react to. We're out.